Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
I wonder as I wonder. I can never remember if it's I wonder as I wander, as I wander, as I wonder. So you said at the beginning, or in your song, is that it's a time for pause and reflection, and how important wondering and wandering is. So up until now, we have I walk in God, we've had imagination, intention, and intensity, walking in faith. And there's also a time, it's not either or, but it's and a time just to let go of directionality and just allow our awareness to question, to wonder how are things going? As I'm doing my spiritual practices, is it actually having any impact on my life? Is my life flourishing in the way that I want? Or am I in sort of similar patterns? Is things making sense? Am I being able to understand things? We need to wonder these things, and that's as important as any sort of formal spiritual or religious or spiritual practice. So, I just invite you to wonder, do you allow for wondering in your life? Because we have, as we know, it's such a busy season, but all year long. So we have our meditation, we talk about our prayer, we talk about all these various things, but we wonder, okay, just didn't know if I was doing something wrong. Wanted to know if we have time just to let our mind go. I recognize when Julian was little, if I didn't have time just to let my mind go, not for a direction or purpose, I would be up in the middle of the night. I had to think about things. Are you like that? Well, you just have to let yourself process things. And what's turned out is because I got used to getting up so early for Julian, I find myself getting up around 5, and I spend about a half an hour just letting my mind roll around with no agenda, just whatever is popping up, and just let myself think about it. And I find that so many shifts happen just in that moment of reflection. What's beautiful about that song, loved your words, and reminds me of why I love New Thought, because those words are so in alignment and to affirm who and what we really are and what the Christ presence represents. And the song itself is also interesting, because I picked I Wonder as I Wander because I was trying to pick walking songs and then I knew, Suzanne's singing, she can nail this. So that was my big reason for doing I Wonder as I Wander. But then I actually didn't look at the words. I thought I knew what they were, but when I read them, they were this morning, they're beautiful. They're beautiful because I don't know if any of you remember what the song is about, but he's wondering, or whoever wrote it, he or she, when they were writing it, we're making this big deal about Jesus, this Christmas morn, only to know that he's going to be dying. Like, why? I'm wondering why is this? This is the King of Kings. He could have angels and all these people come and support him, and yet this big event is leading to Easter, right? Is leading to that Easter experience. And so the person's wondering it. And I'm like, that's great that they're wondering it. We should wonder about these things. We should wonder about, we have all these shoulds, and to step back and say, well, wait a minute. If God's all good, why is there so much suffering? Those are good questions to ask. If everything's moving in ease and flow all the time, why aren't people just wandering around in ease and flow? All the people who teach it, there's thousands of people, millions, I don't know how many people understand basic principles. How come it's not always happening? It's supposed to. We believe in one power, one presence, the entire universe is conspiring for us good. I wonder about that. These are good things for us to wonder about. We're all going to die. Just spoiler alert. And as we go into the season, there's an expectation. It's supposed to be happy, all this stuff, the Hallmark movies, which I'm just going to own up. I really dislike Hallmark movies just because it seems phony to me. It's like this ideal of life that doesn't have depth or wisdom. It's just, it's a pattern. You know exactly what's going to happen, and it's going to all be happy in the ending, and there's no real depth of the human experience. But there's that, those types of movies are proliferating because we are hungry. We are hungry for something safe to hold on to because loneliness is epidemic. And so when you get to a holiday season, that can really start to pound away at your feelings about, I'm not doing this right. Or we talk about the holiday season is so busy, but they're really busy because family, it's been a year since I heard it, but I love the way Glennon Doyle said it was like, holidays are just more, meaning more of everything. Family, more. Work, more. Whatever it is, it's more. It intensifies everything. So that means that the challenges, if you have, Kathy Ann Lewis was saying it's like a whack-a-mole. Like every time you think you got one thing, it's the next thing. Oh, no, I got to take care of this. No, like this is the end of the year where there's so much happening. So we have this incredible intensity of shoulds that surround us from family and from work that are intensified, and we're supposed to be feeling these deep spiritual feelings. We might have people that we've lost. You know, we've lost people, I know people, we all have, but decades ago. It's been decades. But they're still with us, and some people have lost people this year. It doesn't matter. When people, and I don't want to say lost, that's the wrong word, when someone has passed to the other side of the veil. I'm not saying transitioned anymore because that also has other meanings. So we'll just say passed to the other side of the veil. We feel that presence when everything's about family and connection and joy and happiness, and you might be feeling grief and sadness. And how does it can make it a little bit harder when everyone is so full of joy, or the expectation of the shoulds of how we feel about things. So the wondering allows us to move into new territory, because the wondering, if we're wondering about something, that's pointing to something that wants to be healed. If there's some way, if I'm wondering, I'm like, well, why isn't that working? Or what is going on here? Or am I feeling too much grief? Is it okay to feel grief and joy at the same time? Whatever the wondering is. And this leads to Ernest Holmes, there's no past precedent. Because often the wondering leads us to, I want to understand something. I want to expand my understanding. I want to expand how I see something, my perceptions. And I don't want to just rely on what I've seen up until now. Wondering takes us into new territory. This is the key about wondering and wandering. It takes us into new territory. And we have to be willing to break the habit pattern of where we've been. No past precedent. Spirit is not ever confined or limited to past precedent. This actually, I've heard this for 30 years. No past precedent. Love the idea of it. But it is an interesting one. So this morning I was just letting myself, I just wanted to be in wonder. I didn't want to focus, be really intentional. And this awareness came, I remember during COVID, a guy came out with a book, and it was based on Neville Goddard stuff, but as well, he was talking about these 3 dots. I'm like, what? So I'm looking up 3 dots, and then it didn't take me anywhere. So it was weird. It was like I was a detective. I was going to find this, and it was so cool because what I found was exactly what we're talking about here. And I wrote the word down, and I forgot. Some of you will know, and when you know what I'm talking about, yell out the word. There's a thing like when you make a pyramid, and then there's a lot of triangles within that pyramid. So there's the little triangles and then the bigger triangle, and it's called the symmetrical triangle or something. Well, you know what I'm talking about, right? So the shape within the shape within the shape. So this is so cool. It's freaky, but it's really cool. What they find is, this is in a number file. You can look them up, number files, and they're just interested in statistics. So what they do is they roll the dice. So they take the 3 dots, and then then they pick a random point, any point in the triangle, and they roll the dice, and they just keep rolling the dice over and over and over and over and over. And what they find, in white dots, all these little triangles come about. But then there's these black triangles where it never lands in those black triangles. So you have a triangle, and there's all these little triangles, but there's also other triangles that never get a dot. And what they're saying is, and they did a computer, so you just do a ton of examples. They've tried so many different things because they love to explore. And what they discover, that we are blind to what we are blind. No matter how many times we look at something, we're going to tend to see it the same way, that we can't see what we don't see. So we'll see the same thing over and over and over. And they said, even if you're turning, so then there's an app. I haven't checked it out yet, but it's an interesting thing. So there's an app called Random Number or something. And it logs where you go. So first you check in, it logs where you go. And then even if you go like, oh, I'm going to go a different way to the grocery store, I'm going to change my pattern, they say, actually, it's still within your prescribed way of being. Like, it's very hard to go into that black space, that part that you never go. It's very hard to push yourself into a new world. Even when you try to change, you actually end up just repeating the pattern. Isn't that cool? Like, you're trying to change the pattern, and yet you're just repeating it. And so what the app's purpose is to get your pattern going, and then it will take you, because you can't see it on your own, it will point to an area that you would never think to go. And then you go to that area, and people report back saying, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. I went there, and just you get new thoughts. You sort of see things a little bit differently. So I got to try it now. So that's what wondering takes us to. Because generally so I was talking about sort of random wondering, but when we have that emotional wondering, like that song, I wonder why Jesus had to be killed, had this great birth, and then to be killed. Like, there was emotion behind it. That's why it's such a beautiful song. When we really wonder about something deep in our soul, it's beginning to push us past our habit patterns. It's pushing us into that black spot where we don't have any answers, where we can't see what we've always seen before. We're literally blind to it, but that we need to open to see from that place. Are you following me? It's not too abstract. And that's why we also need tenderness with wondering, because it is scary, because it is literally new territory. It's dark. There's not anything familiar to hold on to. As we heard in the Pema Chodron thing, that the groundlessness can be scary. And so we want to be tender with ourselves, to allow that tenderness as we're asking these wonder questions, wondering about things, to allow ourselves to move into new territory, but recognizing that this is new, that it is scary, and that we are enveloped in love. So as I was contemplating this, I've been contemplating it all week, and so I went back to watch two movies that reminded me of it. How many of you have seen the movie Noelle? Oh, you haven't seen Noelle? Oh my, I think yeah. So you've seen it, and Jack's seen it. So I won't talk about it because I don't want to ruin it. But I'll tell you generally. It came out a while. It's not a very well-known movie, but it's what I would say it's an adult Christmas movie. So this is adults who are, so all the characters that they show are just outside the normal yippee Christmas. There's one character who never was able to have children. Her husband's left her. So she's sort of alone. She has a job, but that night, Christmas Eve, she has nothing to do. So she's wandering the streets of New York City. She's played by Susan Sarandon. There's another gentleman who was left, was beaten by his stepfather, and his mom abandoned him at 14. So as an adult, he didn't really have any positive memories except for one at Christmas time. So in order to feel that connection, he tries to repeat that experience. Another person is in love with his girlfriend. They're engaged, but he has this incredibly violent jealousy, and he can't seem to get past it. She loves him, but he can't get past it. So it's people who are not really fitting into the happy-go-lucky, and so all of them at one point are sort of going into their wonderment, like they're not really in, you can see that that's not in the main energy of the Christmas spirit, but that they're very wondering is what leads them I'm not going to say. Just leads them. Because you haven't seen it, but see, you got to see it. So I'll give you another movie that I know you all have seen. I would be surprised if any of you haven't seen it, which is It's a Wonderful Life. How many of you have seen It's a Wonderful Life? Everybody, I think. I'm sorry for people online. I'm asking you to, blessing you, but it's hard to see. Anyone? Beth has seen Noel? All right, we got two. So It's a Wonderful Life. So I don't have to worry about giving anything away. So we have George Bailey. It was so interesting watching the movie from this perspective. George Bailey's habit pattern is to have a passion. He has dreams, but he never fulfills them because he always puts other people's before him because he's a good guy. That's the basic essence of the movie. He's a good guy. So he's always giving up for, just as he's about to get free from the bondage, from the past, he gets pulled back in by his care for other people. And Jack and Julian and I were watching it yesterday, and I just got annoyed because I never got annoyed before. But now I'm watching it from this idea of patterns. His brother goes off to college. He stops what he's going to do so his brother can go to college and so he can save building and loan. But then his brother comes back and he's married with another job offer. And I mean, the right thing for the brother to say is, you've been here, you let me do all this stuff, let me take the job for a while you go off and do your dream. But not only does he not say that, nobody else expects that either. I'm like, oh, of course George will stay here and give up his dream again for his brother who now is happy. And George is in agreement with that. George is like, yeah, I want my brother to be happy. That seems to be fulfilling him. Get out of Bedford Falls, yeah. So that's the habit pattern that he's in. So when the big crisis happens and the money is lost, by the way, he did not lose the money, but again, he takes the responsibility. He's the head of savings alone, and there's going to be this big tragedy. He's in his habit pattern, which is he's the person who is responsible, and if he doesn't save it, nobody else can. So he saw no possibility, really, once there was in crisis, other than crisis. When we are in our default mode, we can try to change our patterns, but when we are in our default mode, we go back to our belief system that we're most comfortable with. So what does he do? He's out of sorts. He goes home, he causes chaos at home, he's mean to his kid's teacher, then he goes to the bar, and he slams his car into a tree, and then he goes to a bar and he gets punched. So he's having a bad night because he's all over the place because he has nothing that he can rely on as he never has. So we see his habit pattern taken to the extreme takes him to the bridge. Because what other choice does he have? There's no one else who's going to take responsibility. There's no one else who's going to give. That's as how he has seen his entire life. I'm just asking you, what are the habit patterns that you can see in your life that are just constant? No matter what happens, this habit pattern keeps showing up in your life. This is just, and generally we can't see it. We're blind to it. That's what the whole point of the dots and all that stuff is. We can't actually see our habit patterns very clearly until we're in a crisis. So, even beyond a crisis. So he's going to jump, and of course, his habit pattern jumps in, is there. Clarence jumps into the water, and he, of course, wants to save somebody else before he destroys himself. And fortunately, it was an angel. So the next period of film is really about him wandering and wondering. What would life be like if I didn't exist? It's that time of reflection, just stepping back. Now, he's not intentionally or consciously doing that. This angel is helping him. So here's an interesting thing. In that movie, Noel, also heavy on angels. Now we can look at it from beings on the other side of the veil who are there, who are always helping us. So when we're in that dark place where we can't see anything, it's new territory, there are beings on the other side of the veil who are helping us. And we can also look at it as there are actual people in our lives who can help us, but we just don't see them because we're in our habit pattern. So however we want to look at it, suddenly Clarence is there showing him what life would be like if he hadn't been there, and of course it changes his entire worldview. Not just like, oh yeah, I'm a nice guy. I mean, anyone could have told George Bailey at any time, you're just a really nice guy, of course we're going to help you. That's obvious. But he didn't know that. He did not know that he was worthy of letting go and letting other people support him. His dad told him, you were old from the day you were born. That he owned that I am responsible for everybody, including his dad. He's responsible for everybody. He's responsible for the whole town. You could have told him 1,000 times and he could not have heard it. This is how our scripts work. These are how our habit patterns work. And I had a teacher who told me, talked about this in the 90s, and I just see it more and more, that if I have a script of unworthiness, it is very hard for someone to treat me as worthy. You can, but it doesn't last because I have a script that's saying I'm unworthy. And so the reason why they call it scripts is because people are reading back to us our scripts. So if I have a script that I'm unworthy, people are just reading that back to me. It's not that they're initiating it, they're just reading back that energy. It takes very conscious spiritual beings saying, no, I see who you really are. You are a brilliant, radiant light of God. I don't care how you feel about yourself. I see you. That's why this spiritual work is so powerful, because it takes us out of past precedent. But it takes deep work. It's one thing for someone to hold that for us, but for us to get it for ourselves does often take a little crisis in our life. When we begin to shift, it's not when things are going well, it's when we have these little crises, these moments of darkness, these moments of, this isn't making any sense, and I need to step back and wonder what's going on here, because everything is it's all over the place, and I can't see straight. That's the reworking. That's the reworking of your pattern, going, woo, wait a minute. And so often we want to go back to what's familiar, but if we have the courage to continue to wander and wonder, we will find angels who will support us in seeing ourselves. That's most important. Ernest Holmes said that in the reading today. We have to do the work on our own. We have to do this changing our pattern. We get support. Clarence could do all the work. He was getting frustrated with George Bailey because he's like, keeps trying to show him, and George Bailey's not getting it. So the angel's like, okay, let's come up with another situation until he gets it. That's how we all are. So what's interesting about this app is I was reading people's comments on it, and they're like, oh, it was really cool at first, but then it made you go far away. Like, it didn't last. And I thought, oh, maybe even when you have the cool experience, you still end up going back to your habit pattern. I don't know, I'm going to have to research it. But this idea of a big shift where there's no past precedent, not just in having an experience, but a deep shift in how we see ourselves. Guess what happens when that happens? We're birthed again as the Christ. That Christ light within us is birthed anew, because that darkness, that scary area that we've never been into before, when we allow beings on the other side, beings on this side that we've never seen before, support us in this unknown territory of, actually, you're very worthy, and in fact, you're very loved. In fact, you are a precious light of God, and not just words, but to feel it at the very core of your being, every atom, cell of your being, you are getting reborn as the Christ light, and you are seeing life in a new way that you've never seen before. Yes, does you see how beautiful this is? We can walk in faith, but when we begin to wonder and wander, it takes us into the depths of our soul so we can heal those areas of our life, those patterns that are no longer serving us, not just temporarily, but permanently. So, of course, at the end of It's a Wonderful Life, George Bailey can accept all that love. Now he can accept it. It was always there, but he had to change in order to receive it. You see that? He had to change deeply in his soul in order to receive all the good that was there all along. This is the beauty of our spiritual teaching, is to heal those parts of ourselves, not just in our concept, not just thoughts, not just cool ideas, not just for a moment, but at our deep structural. That's why I love the the numbers thing, because what they were saying is that there's like a structure for your habit patterns. And to really change the structure of our habit patterns, we really have to be willing to go into new territory and have courage and tenderness and open ourselves up in vulnerability to the right people, to the angelic forces who are seeing us for who we really are and not for our habit pattern. And that's when we feel this beautiful spirit of Christ, of Buddha, of Atman, whatever the word is, but that eternal light that's at the center of our being. So we wander and we wonder and we feel the holiness of our journey. Yeah? So this week, if you feel that there's no shoulds, we're hot in the holiday season. We have, 2 weeks left of December. You may have deadlines at work. You may have things, obligations with your family that are good and are bad, that are joyous, but still demand time. You have presents to buy people. Oh my gosh, they won't think I love them unless I buy them a gift. Just there's a joy in it too. I'm not taking away from all the joy. Being with the people we love, having a job that we love, all of that's good, but there's also a lot of pressure. And so I'm just inviting us to allow yourself to wonder, even as you enjoy and be in the joy, because you can find even deeper joy as we allow ourselves to wonder. That was very convoluted. Just wonder and wander and you'll be good. Yes? You ready to pray? And as we end in the prayer, Suzanne's going to come and sing for us. Winter solstice on Thursday. Next Sunday is Christmas Eve. New Year's. This is a time of transformation. And so we open our hearts, our bodies, our minds, and our souls. Knowing that our journey on this beautiful planet Earth is to continually transform and transform and transform so we can become an even greater transparency of light, of love beyond our wildest imagination, of joy, of freedom, of deep connection and care, of harmony, of beauty, of tenderness and gentleness. And so we commit to our beautiful journey of whatever needs to be healed in this year. These last 2 weeks, we open our heart and our body and our soul to feel the infinite presence of the divine moving through and as us. We open our heart, our body, our mind, and soul to the divine presence in all of its form on the other side of the veil, holding us and caring for us and leading us and guiding us so that we truly can embody this new beautiful radiant light, this Christ light within us. This innocent Christ light can shine brilliantly, freely, openly, and powerfully as each and every one of us. And as we are open and willing to be this new light, at least willing to welcome this new light into our heart and into our soul, we breathe in and we are aware of all the people on the planet who are suffering, who were born as divine beings. From the moment they were born, they were divine beings into this world, and yet their journeys have been different than ours, or maybe our journeys are also equally challenging. We bless every person who is going to the food bank, feeding their families, looking to bring Christmas spirit to their children when they are going through their own challenges as adults. We bless those people who are in war zones, who have nothing, who feel they have nothing in terms of celebration, whether it's Hanukkah, whether it's their own, whatever their own religious background is, in the Ukraine, in Gaza. We feel the pain of it all. There are no borders. There's only love that knows no borders. And our hearts open to everyone who's in pain and the suffering and darkness that people are walking in beyond we can't even imagine it sometimes, the darkness people are walking through. And yet, because we are here doing our own work, we are those vehicles of light. We are those places of light consciousness that are healing not only our own lives, but we are that place of light that are healing this planet, that we are unwavering in that connection with the divine. We are unwavering in our walking in a faith. We are unwavering in our intense intention. We are unwavering in our walk in God. That in the midst of all of it, we will never abandon the truth of what we know, that the light that lighteth up the universe is right here and right now in the midst of our own journey, as well as the journeys of all of our brothers and sisters all over this planet, as well as the animals and the plants and the vegetation, all of it. Our heart knows no limit. This light has no limit. It has no boundaries. It is everything. As we embrace that light within and in and as every atom and cell of our beingness, we embrace it as every atom and cell of all creation. We are one, forever in that light that is fearless, that is full of joy and unlimited good, that is not of this world, and yet fully available to all of us in this world. Just breathe that in. It is not through our humanness, but through that spiritual power and presence of love that the healing is already done. And we give thanks and we let it be. And so it is.
I walk in God in all